Gorn is somewhat of an oddity to me. An elder statesman of VR, Gorn has a history of wild popularity. The zany brawler, with its tongue-in-cheek ultraviolence, has been a crowd favourite for years. But I need to share a secret with you. I have never been able to understand why. When Gorn first landed on Quest back in January of 2021, I happily jumped aboard the hype train, prepared to finally enjoy one of VR's hallmark experiences.
That's hype, yo.
You're the hype man!
Hype, indeed.
20 minutes later, however, I was left completely bewildered, wondering how that, of all the games available at the time, had somehow become everyone's darling. Needless to say, my refund request was submitted swiftly and without mercy. Now, some 4 years later, we have an unexpected sequel on our hands as Gorn 2 dick punches its way onto the Quest. Can I shake off my prior disdain and approach the next installment of Baldy McRubbersword and the Arena of Innuendo with some sense of objectivity? I'll let you decide. Let's not beat around the bush here. At its core, Gorn 2 is a physics-based arena brawler nestled gently inside a fart joke. From a narrative point, things are pretty simple in the land of Gorn. The game casts you as a resurrected warrior in the afterlife, tasked with restoring the power of a disembodied god. This can be achieved by defeating his 5 bastard children, each of whom will appear as a boss once you fight your way through their distinctive arenas. The story is light and mostly serves to justify the combat, but it gives the game a touch of context and sets up the tone of the game well enough. From the first instance where you set about reclaiming the fallen god's butt guts, you get a sense of what to expect. Gorn 2 leans heavily into this sense of silliness that borders on the absurd. It employs a sense of humour that one could generously say is aimed at a younger audience if one was really trying not to use the word infantile. So, be warned, if this doesn't sound like your cup of tea, then perhaps you may wish to steer clear. All in all, the campaign takes somewhere between 2 to 3 hours to complete, but fans of the gameplay will be able to keep enjoying the frivolous fighting with custom game and endless modes on offer throughout. The combat is similarly toned. Unlike more serious VR combat titles like Undead Citadel, Blade and Sorcery, or Hellsplit Arena, Gorn 2 embraces a tone of cartoon ultraviolence and juvenile humour. It revels in it. In fact, giggling at things like pushing pint-sized adversaries into an oversized blender or duking it out with a chicken that somehow has human arms seems to be the entire point of this game. The gameplay loop is simple. Enter an arena, survive waves of enemies, and defeat the boss. Combat is physics-driven, however there is an interesting bendiness to the weapons that further matches the ludicrous tone that permeates throughout the game. Spears and swords have solid collision detection, but flex as if made of rubber. Outside of the farts and the physics, Gorn 2 is really an arcade-style brawler, insofar as the depth of the combat is at best ankle-deep. You'll be swinging, flailing, and smashing enemies in slapstick fashion, but you won't be stringing together combos or defeating any particularly challenging foes. While there is a basic parry system in place, enemies aren't particularly tactical or well animated, so defensive strategy is rarely needed. Opponents just shamble towards you on their tiny little legs and flail at you with all the grace and precision of a newborn giraffe. While well-placed stabs and head bashes can be satisfying, there is an unfortunate leaning towards the dreaded wiggle sword, and this cheapens the thrill of dealing a mighty blow to your enemies. It's obviously way more fun just to take wild swings that send your opponents flying, but once you realize that you can just gently wobble 2 spears in someone's face and effectively turn them into Carpaccio, the last elements of tension disappear. In fact, for the most part, once you get the giant hammer, pretty much every enemy is only a swat or 2 away from oblivion. Given the tone of the game, this lack of combat depth can broadly be forgiven, but what really holds it back from just being fun is the movement, or rather, the lack thereof. There's no sprinting, there's no jumping, there's no dashing, there's nothing. Just a steady plod around the arena. For a game that seems to be all about the possibilities of an anything-goes, over-the-top style mayhem, it seems such a missed opportunity not to include anything that jazzes up the movement. There are bonus objectives in each level, which add a bit of replay value, and these often center around using environmental hazards or particular methods of brutality to get some slightly more creative kills. You might be encouraged, for example, to kill X number of enemies by skewering their hearts, or ripping off their heads, or leading them into the path of a charging bull. There are also some levels that introduce twists like gravity distortion or changing the player's size, and these shake the gameplay up, but they are too few and far between to really offer any meaningful depth to the gameplay. Gorn 2 embraces a bright, crisp, and highly stylized cartoon aesthetic that fits the game's otherwise exaggerated tone. The art direction is deliberately simple, yet very effective. Character models are bulky and rubbery and expressive, which suits the slapstick nature of the combat. Environments are varied enough across the 5 arenas to stay visually interesting, even if they're not particularly detailed. The use of vivid colors and clean visual design also means that the gameplay runs smoothly on standalone hardware, with very few noticeable drops in performance. Like most physics-based brawlers, there is some jank, but because of the intentional humor of the game, it actually feels fitting in Gorn 2. Watching a character model distort out of shape while you bop it on the head with an oversized novelty lamb chop is hardly highbrow comedy, but it's not funny. Animations are intentionally goofy, enemies wobble, flail, and ragdoll in amusing ways that works with the game's sense of humor. Blood sprays and dismemberments are presented in such an exaggerated, cartoonish way that they feel more ridiculous than disturbing. The sound design is also decent, complementing the overall tone of the game nicely. There's good use of spatial audio to help you keep track of approaching threats, and weapon impacts have a satisfyingly hefty clang that gives some weight and resonance to the otherwise rubber chicken rumble. The voice acting is delivered with genuine energy and character, helping sell the game's irreverent tone. Overall, the graphics and sound aren't just functional, they are fundamental to Gorn 2's identity, helping create a cohesive world that feels intentionally absurd. Gorn 2 knows exactly what it is: a chaotic, ridiculous, and unapologetically dumb arena brawler. It's not for everyone, it's definitely not for everyone. Certainly not for players seeking depth, narrative, or strategic combat. But it delivers exactly what it promises. While I didn't enjoy the first Gorn at all, and quite frankly, hated my first 20 minutes in the sequel, I did end up having some fun despite myself. The game is undeniably geared towards a less mature audience, and I feel like enjoyment will increase in line with your proximity to the age of 12. That said, despite the several things that work well in context, as well as my own well-documented immaturity, I still can't recommend the Gorn franchise. Perhaps the most telling summary I can give you is to say that once this review is done, I will uninstall Gorn 2, and I will likely never feel compelled to play it again. 5.5 Infantile. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to stay up to date with all the news, reviews, and did someone say impending series 2 of the podcast, then click subscribe, click like, do all the YouTube things that you know you must. And until next time, happy gaming.
Vota, es Rocky, es que, vota, vota también, bro.